Let's talk a little more about intuition. I really think this is such an important piece of the transitioning into the new earth, the new world as we know it, into the earth that has always been here. And I would say is very deeply connected to our intuition because we are not separate from it. And I think that's a very important point for all of us to recognize that the earth that we are longing for, or the world, the new earth, we've heard these terms. It's only new to our experience right now because we have been using our five senses to experience the world as we know it today. And as we pull back from those five senses and into our soul sense, our inner guiding system, our divine connection, then we will start feeling the connection with this so-called new earth. It is already who we are, and it is not experienced on the outside in the same way that it is now. So intuition is kind of an inner process. And I looked it up to see what intuition actually means in the dictionary. So I just went online, and it basically says that intuition is a natural ability or power that makes it possible to know something without any proof or evidence. It's a feeling that guides a person to act a certain way without fully understanding why. Now, that is good news for those of us who feel that there needs to be some kind of a proof. It has to be able to maybe a scientific reason for the way we feel or the way we know something. And I'm not saying that that doesn't exist. I'm sure it does. In the meantime, we have our intuition that guides us. And we've talked about the basics of it. The ABCs of the alphabet is the yes, the no, and the I don't know. It's the very foundation where we move from. And if somebody says to you, well, how do you know that that's the right thing? If you feel a clear yes or a clear no. You know, in the past, I would have doubted myself because I couldn't prove it. There was just this thing here that just told me yes or no, and I couldn't prove it, and it was not being honored or accepted. So that's where we all learn to suppress our intuition or our natural knowing. And remember, this intuition is connected to the earth that is not visible to our senses either. It's like it's a whole different level of consciousness that we are beginning to step back into as the real homecoming, home with a capital H. The Christ consciousness, the second coming of the Christ, is because we are going inside and finding that it is already there. And in that way, it becomes the second coming. You know, maybe 2000 years ago, that was the first coming and it was shown in the outer. Now, the second coming is an inner experience where we experience and realize that this is who we already are and we had just forgotten. So there are many, many levels to the intuition. And like I've shared before, it is different for each one of us. And we really need to learn our own intuitive language, our own soul faculty language, and not compare that either with anybody else and think, well, he felt this and I feel this, so maybe I'm wrong. Or, she says that and he says that, and I'm confused now. It's simply because we have not fully learned to trust what we already know. It does not matter if anybody has a different experience. That is probably the right one for them. I mean, we're not supposed to be little robots who are doing exactly the same and feeling exactly the same, believing the same. No, we are individual expressions of this divine, and it comes out as intuition, as an inner knowing or guidance or movement. And once you start trusting that more, your yes and your no, and also your I don't know, it's almost like, how do I say that? It starts filling you out more. It becomes more natural for you to be that, because you're not squashing it or suppressing it or turning away from it. So it feels like it fills you up more, and it just becomes your natural way of being and your natural way of responding. And your yes will come out as just a yes, and your no as a no. It's not like, oh, do I have to censor it? Is it okay? Is it safe? More and more, it just becomes spontaneous. And if I compare with myself, there are still times where I find myself like, ooh, is it okay to say that? Do I need to not say it? But I can be with that process. It doesn't truncate what I know. I'm just like, okay, can I expand a little more in myself here and actually say it? Or maybe there's no reason to say it. I can just be it and know it, that that's my experience, that's my truth. And as that starts moving more and more as us, you will also notice that you find yourself doing things that you don't really know why you're doing it. Let me just read that again, what it said here. It's a feeling that guides a person to act a certain way without fully understanding why. And it is really cool, because once you start trusting this, you do it because you can't really help it. I remember many years ago, there was somebody who was offering a retreat in India for 2 months. And when I read it, I was like, oh my God, I really want to do that. But then all the mind thing came up, and, like, nah, nah, nah. But what happened was that I just noticed or observed myself that I was getting online and I was looking for tickets, and I was, looking for a cat sitter. I noticed that I was taking all the steps without really knowing why, because my mind had not said, yeah, let's go. But as this energy was just moving me and having me do things that apparently led to the final yes, it was more like, I guess I'm going. I guess I'm going to India for 2 months. But there was no sitting down and going over it and, thinking about it and wondering about it and finding reasons why I shouldn't. It was just this thing here. It was just doing it. And I was just observing it. And it's really fun. And I'm sure some of you have already experienced that also. Or you just get this hunch, to call somebody. And it is the exact right timing. And they were just thinking of you also. This is how it works once you have learned to trust it. And then you will realize it was always there, was always there. And it was just me who was pretending it wasn't there, or who was believing that it couldn't be true because I couldn't prove it. There's no need for proof. And again, it's fine if you make mistakes. We all do. Everybody does. But don't make that a reason to not trust it. Instead, make that a reason to check it out and find out, where weren't you fully on board with this expression? What was the feeling? Did you fully follow it, or did your mind get in there and try to manipulate it a little bit, or put some ideas in your head? So this is simply the way, once you learn the basics or the 101 of intuition, then you can start playing more with it and be more alive in it and be more at one with it. And then it doesn't really make sense anymore to go up here and try and figure it out. Because when you go up here in your mind, that is where the duality lives. So you will always get a yes and a no, or a reason why you shouldn't and a reason why you should, or anything in between there. And it's not that we dismiss that part of ourselves, because it can kind of put it all together, and then there might be a final decision or something that goes through that. But it doesn't come from here. It comes from this movement, the aliveness, the knowing it, the trusting it. And then you start taking action, right? So it's learning to listen to it, learning to interpret it, learning to trust it. And then you take the action from within. It's not separate. It's not like, oh, you stand out here. It's like, oh my God, do I dare do it? Shall I do it? When you're in here, that doesn't exist. That does exist out here and in here. In here, that doesn't exist. It's like the river or the flow of water, right? It does not think about it, it just flows. And that's what it becomes for all of us over time. But it's a fun thing to play around with. I think I shared last time, play with that in an area where it feels safe. And if you make a mistake, it's not going to be devastating. And if you do make a mistake, go back inside and tune back in to find out, well, what is really true now that I'm in this situation? How does the flow want to flow now? And then follow that, check it out. But I'm very doubtful that we will make it into the new earth that is here if we don't jump into that flow that already is the new earth and that flows us in the new earth and expresses itself in ways that I think all of us, most of us, if not all of us, we feel that there is something inside that feels real, authentic, natural, that is free from all that mind stuff. It is already there, and that is the new earth. It's funny because as I say that right now, I have never said that before or even thought that before. So in a way, this is an example of me, just the flow flows and words are spoken that I have not censored or thought about before. And I'm learning from that too. It's like, oh yeah, the new earth is already here. And all we need to do is learn to trust the language of the new earth that has always been here, that is getting louder now because the outer noise is getting softer. So we are more able to hear this and feel this and sense this. So let's hop on this flow and serve back inside so it can just move us as one wholeness, not all these separate ones that might crash into each other and, cause a lot of trouble. No, when we all dive into that intuition, that knowing, that flow, we don't need to worry about offending people. There might be people who do, but that's like crashing into a rock somewhere and it's like poof, the water comes right back in and keeps moving. So let's practice it for real and see if that's going to help us all to enter into this existing new earth. So we make ourselves available for it now. Instead of going against this new earth that's waiting for us, now we are becoming one with it. Now we are allowing ourselves to flow with it and become one with it and be curious and open to not quite knowing where it's going to go. But we know one thing, and that is this inner knowing, the flow, that energy that always, always knows.